All right, guys. So, going a little bit different today, I'm going to play a movie recap. I suggest everyone watch this movie. It's really a good one. Uh, it's got a deep storyline and great characters. And sadly, it's the real life of many, many people. Um, yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it, and then I'll kind of chime in at the end. So, beforehand, this movie is called Palmer. It's got Justin Timberlake in it. In the past, I've kind of talked shit about him, but he's actually become a really, really good actor, in my opinion. And he's got good versatility. He can play several different roles. He does comedy, and in this, it's like a more of a drama. But yeah, he does a really good job.
Hi guys, Cinematic Recapped here. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm gonna explain an American inspirational drama movie called Palmer. The movie tells the story of Eddie Palmer, a prominent former high school and ex-felon who has just completed a 12-year prison sentence. He was released from prison on parole, so he wants to start a new life by moving in with his grandmother, Vivian. She also occasionally looks after a flamboyant 8-year-old boy named Sam, who is the son of her neighbor Shelley, a drug addict. In addition, Sam has a feminine personality and prefers things such as dresses, princesses, and tea parties over more traditionally masculine activities. Vivian really cares for him because his parents don't really pay much attention to Sam, especially when they are away from home. The next day, Palmer goes around town looking for work. Unfortunately, he still cannot find any job because of his status as an ex-criminal. Not only that, other people still talk about his past even when he is worshiping at the church. Later, Vivian gives him some money to buy groceries before he leaves the house to find another job. When Palmer finishes shopping, he accidentally sees the job opening as a counter person, but suddenly the shop manager says that the vacancy is cancelled, as if he wants to gently reject Palmer. He gets even angrier when Vivian accuses him of taking the rest of the change earlier. As a result, he decides to get drunk at the bar, and luckily, he finds another job opening as a janitor in the local school where Sam studies. The following morning, he goes to the school to apply for the job. He then meets with the chief janitor and also the school principal. At first, the principal still rejects him because of his status, but in the end he is accepted after he begs to be given a second chance to become a better person. Soon, Palmer, Vivian, and Sam have dinner together. At that time, Vivian apologizes to him because it turns out that she miscounted her change yesterday. Apart from being a janitor at the school, Palmer also helps Vivian to look after Sam at school because Shelley has repeatedly left town with her violent boyfriend, Jerry. One day, Palmer feels very sad after finding that Vivian has passed away in her bedroom. Because of this, he is forced to become Sam's temporary guardian until Shelley returns home. At the same time, Palmer feels uncomfortable with Sam's behavior, which does not act like a boy in general. He immediately takes Sam to the police station and entrusts him to the police. Furthermore, he also reports Sam's parents for neglecting their child for 2 weeks. However, all of his actions are undone after he thinks a second time that he feels bad for Sam, eventually taking him back home. The relationship between the two has improved over time. Sam always follows Palmer wherever he goes. The news of Sam, who now living at Palmer's house, spreads to the school, including Sam's teacher, Maggie. Therefore, she visits Palmer's house to see how Sam is doing. She thanks Palmer because he wants to take care of Sam after he was abandoned by his parents. She also gives her phone number in case Palmer needs help taking care of Sam. Sometime later, Palmer develops a closer friendship with the boy by taking him to the high school football game and bowling fundraiser. Furthermore, he also develops a relationship with Maggie. As their relationship gets better, they spend every day just like father and son, taking Sam to the school every day, celebrating birthdays, and hanging out at cafes together. Besides that, Palmer also does not forget to report all his recent activities to the police because his status is still on parole. However, all those moments of happiness suddenly change when Palmer reads Vivian's will. It is written that she left her house and all her assets to the church. Palmer must have been very surprised to read her will. Moreover, Vivian's lawyer tells Palmer that once the house is sold, he will have 30 days to move out of the house. He also only gets $5,000 from the sale of the house. One night, Palmer and Sam are having a Halloween party at Maggie's house. After Sam falls asleep, the two chat while telling their respective pasts. At that moment, Maggie wonders why Palmer ended up in prison. He then tells all of his past to Maggie, revealing that after a promising high school football career, he was injured in a game while playing for Louisiana State University. As a result, he had to retire early as a footballer due to the severe injury. After he became depressed because he lost his scholarship and dropping out of college, he started taking drugs at home. When he started to run out of money, he decided to rob the safe of a rich family in town with the help of his friends. The house was supposed to be empty, but the owner suddenly came home and Palmer nearly beat him to death with a baseball bat. He eventually got caught by the police and was sent to the prison. Afterwards, Maggie reassures Palmer that although that was his behavior back then, he has turned into a good man now, showing all the good he has done in Sam's life. One day, Sam comes home from his friend's house crying with makeup smeared on his face. Palmer believes it was one of Sam's classmates who did it, so he forces Sam to fight back. However, Sam tells him that it was actually one of Palmer's friend. Feeling angry, Palmer finally finds his friend at a bar and beats him up straight away, telling him never to bully Sam again. The following day, Shelley unexpectedly returns home and comes to retrieve Sam. Palmer can only be silent and cannot do anything because after all Shelley is his biological mother. Shortly after Sam moved in with his mother, Palmer is surprised when Child Protection Services suddenly comes to take Sam away from the house. He immediately follows them to the office and attempts to receive Sam's guardianship, but he is rejected due to his parole status and the uncertainty of his current life situation. He even tries another way to receive Sam's guardianship by bribing Shelley later. He asks her to make a statement to the police so Palmer can become Sam's legal guardian. Unluckily, Shelley insists on refusing his request and asks him out of her house. In court, Maggie accompanies Palmer in trying to convince the judge to accept his request as Sam's guardian. A few moments later, Shelley suddenly comes to the court and it is her turn to assure the judge that she will take good care of Sam. Despite Palmer's pleas earlier, the judge ultimately orders Sam to reunite with Shelley. Later, Palmer listens to the commotion at Sam's house and witnesses Jerry brutally abusing Shelley and Sam. He immediately intervenes and sees that both Shelley and Jerry are using drugs in front of Sam. He then attacks Jerry and flees with the boy as fast as he could. Shelley calls the police and Palmer is accused of kidnapping Sam. Soon, Maggie calls Palmer to tell him that he is currently being chased by the police. Hearing this, he decides to bring Sam back to Shelley. Arriving at the scene, he is immediately arrested and taken away by the police. Meanwhile, Sam tries to fight off the police officers and chases after the police car, crying that he would rather be with Palmer than his mother. The next morning, Shelley declines to press charges and covers for Palmer after seeing Sam's love for Palmer last night. She then meets up with Sam and tearfully says that it is okay if he wants to live with Palmer. Hence, Shelley eventually chooses to give Palmer custody of Sam because she cannot take good care of Sam with her current condition. She also promises to undergo rehabilitation so that she can be a good parent for Sam later on. At the end of the movie, Palmer and Sam are seen preparing to sell Vivian's house as they live with Maggie ever since. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications.
So, excellent movie. As I said, it kind of represents themes that are all too common in real life. I do disagree with some of the messaging, though, and many people will disagree with me on this, and that's fine, but I highly doubt you'll ever change my mind. For many people, I would say most of society, they conflate law and morality. They think they're the same. That what is legal is what is right. And that is not true. Oftentimes, legality is what is convenient for bureaucrats, or oftentimes things are lopsided in favor of wealthy people, for example. The law is not morality. You determine morality yourself. It's the only way. Now, don't get me wrong, because there is some overlap. Like, for example, just like harassing people. Of course, the law gets involved. You can get restraining orders and all that, and that's a good thing. My point, though, is that it's not like this perfect cookie cutter, like the law is good. That's just bullshit. Not to say that there isn't good in the law, if you follow what I'm saying. So there's subjectivity here. So what Palmer did, he went to beat the shit out of the bigoted fuckwad that's like a fucking adult picking and bullying on a young boy, all because the boy didn't fit his really stupid and narrow-minded version of what a boy should be. So he like smeared fucking makeup all over him and held him down. And yeah, that causes a lot of trauma to a boy that's already dealing with too much shit in his life. So you get people who are backward. Oftentimes they're highly religious people, but not always. They'll be like conditioned that there's like everything is like binary, that like, and very overly simplistic. Like, this is what boys do, this is what girls do. And these are evil human beings. They're pieces of shit and they shouldn't be taken seriously. But my point is, what Palmer did was not wrong. I don't care what is legal. I care about right and wrong, and I look at things through like a utilitarian lens. So the greater good was served. The bigoted piece of shit dude will not listen to reason. These type of people never do. You can't just like call the police and then they like, hell, as in this story, the police were actually just kind of standing by as it was done because he agreed with the bigoted piece of shit. And this isn't that rare, unfortunately. Justice, or the justice system, is highly flawed. As an atheist, I don't believe in any sort of like, you don't die, or at least my belief is that you don't die and then there's like an arbiter at a gate in like some magical other reality or in the sky, whatever, that like tallies your good deeds and your bad deeds. No. All we have is, at least for justice, which is very important, is what we have in this world. So when people, I know it's well-meaning, but when people like go, well, that's not okay, you're just the same as the person that did that, or Maggie in this case left, I don't think it showed it in the synopsis or the recap, but she ended up leaving Palmer for a time because he was just like he was before, and that's bullshit. What he did before was intent. Well, let's go back to intent is everything. So Palmer wanted to steal from someone because it was easy and it was selfish, and yeah, but he learned his lesson, right? He wanted to change his life, and he did. So the intent behind beating the shit out of that other person was, that is the language that he understands. It may be the only way to reach the bigoted piece of shit. And I completely and totally fucking like condone everything Palmer did. Personally, I probably would have went further if I was personally connected to Sam in that situation. So Maggie has this message that violence is never the answer, and that is simply naive. That's living in like a make-believe fucking imaginary fucking beautiful like paradise that does not exist in this world. Sometimes, and this is what it means to be a good person. Sometimes you have to do what is right despite what everyone else thinks. Sometimes you have to do what is right, even if it makes you a criminal. That is the true indication of what makes a good person good. You're not doing it for you. What he did, and so there's different little parts here. So it was probably a mistake to just kidnap Sam. I'm not exactly going to say that was the right thing to do, but his intention was good. He didn't know what to do. And it's worth noting that Palmer tried to work within the system. He tried. He really put effort into doing it the quote right way. It didn't work. So he felt like there's nothing else he could do. Yeah. So I guess the main thing that I think would be considered what's the word? Controversial to most people is that I do condone violence. And that doesn't mean that all violence, blah, blah, blah. Actually, when it comes to like honor type shit, like fighting because some dude talks shit, I've always maintained that that's insecurity and that's stupid. That's all it is. It's just you being an idiot and highly insecure. Like men, adults, don't fight over stupid shit like that ever, not unless you're insecure. You solve your problems with words. If you can't, then you haven't grown up, and yeah. But this is an entirely different matter. This is a situation where there's a piece of shit that looks at the world through a lens of like might makes right, and they're tough, and they have this very rigid worldview where they're bigoted and just shitty human beings in general. Likely it goes back to like some sort of abuse as a child or whatever. And it's like perpetuating the cycle, but you're not going to reach them by having a heart to heart and telling them that what they're doing is wrong. I've met these people personally. You will never get anywhere doing that. You have to speak their language. And this whole bullshit that everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people say is if you quote bully a bully, you're exactly the same as them. That is absolute horseshit. And that shows that they're incapable of critical thinking. Intent is everything. If you're beating the shit out of a person because it's the best means at your disposal to reach them and potentially change them because it's the only fucking language they understand, that is good. Because your intention is making the world a better place. So, will it always solve the problem? No. In fact, sometimes it will create a cycle where they'll come back and then you'll have to beat the shit out of them again, whatever. Or sometimes they'll like pull out a gun or whatever. Yes, it can get worse, but it's something. And at the very least, if it doesn't change them, if it doesn't make them fear it, because you are sort of taking the place of this role that they're adopting and trying to like force onto the world, you're using their own method against them. But even if it doesn't work, you have at least to some extent made it less likely that they will continue just completely unhindered because they know that that not just you, but they're reminded that there are people out there that aren't pieces of shit that will not fucking tolerate that crap. So it makes them question their decisions, at least to some extent. The worst thing you can do, and this goes back to basic psychology, the worst thing you can do when a person is evil or doing evil actions is to shrug and go, well, it's terrible, but there's nothing I can do. Because inaction is the same thing as, can't think of the word I'm looking for. Fuck, what is that word? reinforcing. It's reinforcing their behavior. Because if there's not negative consequences, even if it's something small, like you're a piece of shit, dude, or something like that, or like you should fucking feel like crap, like you're fucking garbage, whatever. Like, if there isn't negative reinforcement, the cycle perpetuates, because any sort of inaction is the same as saying, I'm doing the right thing. At least in their head, that's how things work. No negative reinforcement is essentially positive reinforcement. These sorts of people specifically, or especially, do not respond to, like, oh, they will eventually learn the error of their ways, blah, blah, blah. No, fuck that. And it makes you a fucking coward. And you're also sort of doing like the bystander effect, where like we've done research that like there'll be like a dying person in public, and everyone looks around and sees that there's like a crowd. In crowds, the person is far less likely to be assisted than if it was just like one or two people. The reason why is because everybody looks around and they're selfish, and they look at it as like, well, this isn't my responsibility. No one else is helping either. So they use that as sort of like mental gymnastics to excuse not doing anything. Anyhow, I highly recommend watching this movie. It's a good one. Yeah. Thank you for your time.